All right, appreciate y'all coming here today. We're actually in a vacant apartment with Jazz and Cam Curtis, following up a recent discussion that we had about their interest in real estate investing. So I'm really excited to have them here, and maybe if we get time, we'll walk around this property and talk about some specific examples. And this is an awesome floor plan. Maybe we'll get a chance to walk through the unit here and see kind of what I might suggest you guys consider as your main apartment rental unit.
Sure. Yeah, happy to be here. Well, first I want to open up and talk about this unit in particular. So how many units is in this building?
This is a 10-unit building.
Wow.
So this is not going to be my recommendation for you guys
right.
to start with.
Yeah, maybe
but the floor plan is really a great floor plan. So if you can find this floor plan in a duplex, triplex, fourplex, we're going to talk about that a little bit, dial down on that, but that would be this is a great floor plan.
Okay. So we think we're interested in like maybe a duplex or a fourplex, maybe bigger. What would you say the pros and cons are to going smaller versus bigger?
Well, Jazz, you had mentioned that you're interested in a rental property where you guys could set aside one unit. You're going to travel a lot. They go all over the place all the time. So you guys just want to lock the door, go off, but be able to derive income when you're out of town in a short-term rental application. Either it be Airbnb or VBO or some type of, it might even be something that y'all put into play yourself through Facebook Market or whatever, where you advertise for a short-term rental opportunity, a furnished apartment. And so with that being said, you also were thinking about if it's a duplex, having a long-term tenant that would be in the other side that would guarantee you or give you steady income while you're either there or not there. So with that like backdrop, let's talk about what some of the options may be. And I'm going to move into how we might finance that. And there are a couple of really cool options that I wished I had taken advantage of when I was at your stage of investing. But duplex being a 2-unit, triplex obviously being a 3, and there's some pros and cons to both, as is with a fourplex, which is what we're going to look at today. We're going to actually look at a fourplex and a duplex that I own that can give you all some examples of what you might consider investing in.
All right. So our idea was kind of maybe to live in one side and then rent out the other one or more spaces. Before you mentioned that might not be a good idea in a duplex. Why is that?
Well, you know, it's in theory, it's great to say, okay, well, we're going to have a tenant in one side that's going to make the mortgage payment for us, and we're going to put a long-term tenant in there. But those tenants do move. I mean, job loss occurs, or they meet somebody that's in a different city, and all of a sudden you're getting a notice that they're not renewing their lease. And so when that happens, you go from basically a 50% economic occupancy because y'all are the other side of a duplex. And so if you're going to be on the road, the idea is for y'all to be able to go do what you do and utilize the income from the long-term tenant basically to make the mortgage, and then the rental income that comes from the short-term usage or rental usage of the apartment that you're going to be living in will basically be just to pay your operating expenses, your taxes, your insurance, your utility. You might have common area lighting or some type of other expenses that you've got. So when that long-term tenant leaves and there's a vacancy that's there, even if it's just a month or two, you still got to write that mortgage payment. So my thought is, because of that, you might be better off to think about a triplex or even a fourplex. At first, for me, it was a bit of a challenge because we didn't have the internet, and so it was by signage. And I had a full-time job, and I was traveling all over the Southeast looking at investment opportunities for a big company that I was working for. And so if I put a sign up on a property back in the day and I'd get a call from it, somebody sitting outside the property, and I'm in Dallas, Texas, you know, I couldn't be there right away. So it was a challenge at first, but once I got established, so my trade name and brand was the Residence Group, and I wanted it to be more in somebody's mind a residence than just an apartment. And then very early on I realized, hey, if I market an apartment, I'm going to be like everybody else. But if I market a lifestyle that just happens to have an apartment that goes with it, then I think that's going to be my differential advantage. So it took a year or two of referrals and me doing a good job as a landlord and bringing in good tenants and getting referrals from good tenants. I did implement pretty early on a incentive for my residents to refer people to me, I would pay them. I'd give them 200 or 500 or something, and that worked very well for me. So initially it's going to be a challenge until people realize, hey, you guys are in the business, and tenants that you have that have been maybe even prior tenants that have left will recommend your property to you. So in the meantime, the internet came along.
I'm sure that made it a lot
And
faster.
we market, I don't ever put a sign up anymore. It's just not a productive use of my time to have to respond to people that are like, oh, there's a sign right there. Let's just pull in and see what they've got, and it's just not a good use. I want somebody that's literally ready to make a decision. And my properties are full with a waiting list, and this is an unusual situation, this vacant apartment. It's already leased. It was unfortunately an eviction, somebody that lost a job, and we carried him for a long time, tried to work through it, but it just got to a point after 4 months, it's time to part ways. And so anyway, you need to expect probably in a 1 year period in a duplex, you're going to have a vacancy 1 or 2 months out of that. So if you've got a financial reserve where you can draw on it, and it's not going to be quite as painful as if you're relying on that actual income, you can weather a storm, but you're going to have some vacancy expense. It's just a natural aspect of the business. So yes, a fourplex, if you get an unexpected vacancy, you still have 3 other apartments to be paying rent and to allow you to not have to dig into your back pocket to fund a down month.
Gotcha. So you've also mentioned previously there was an event of sorts called like the subprime lending event. And maybe that made it easier in the past to get approved for certain properties if you were a young person looking to get into it. I'm under the impression that that's kind of changed now, and it can be a little bit more difficult for young people.
I don't know. We're about in another housing reset in 2025, and some people are saying it's going to be just as bad, if not worse, than what happened in 2008 because of Airbnb inventory that people bought in 2020, 2021 at the height of the housing market. They overpaid. And they did a 5-year loan, and that loan is about to reset, and the interest rates have gone up, so that means that their payments are going to be higher, and so they're walking away from properties a lot. And the event that you talked about actually didn't happen in 2008. It started happening around 2000, 2001. There was a slight recession, after 9/11 and some things that were not directly related to the war that happened. But anyway, we came out of that, and Wall Street greed. Everybody started like bartering loans, and so all the credit parameters went out the door. So subprime basically meant lenders would lend to people that were below a typical credit level or cash level or substance level to be able to feel confident that they were going to be able to repay the loan. They were just loaning to dead people, basically, almost literally. And so what the lenders were doing, they weren't really worried about whether the loans would fail ultimately. They were worried about, okay, how much can we put out the door now, and then we'll package these portfolios up and we'll sell them to Wall Street, and it'll be somebody else's problem down the road. The problem was 2006, 7 hit, and default started. People were doing like these 3-year deals where the interest would reset in 3 years, the rates started going up, and there was just massive defaults. And there was a bartender that I know that owned 3 rental properties, and she was a bartender working on tip income. So she went to the bank and she said, hey, I can make in a good year, I can make $100,000 a year. Oh, well, man, you qualify for, $350,000 worth of debt. And do I have to make a down payment? No, you don't even have to make a down payment. We'll just fix you up right here. Stated income loans, subprime, those are gone. So now things have more or less reverted back to a more traditional lending environment. So if you come up with a fourplex that you want to buy and you go to a typical bank, you're going to be asked to put 20 to 25% down. Mm-hmm. And so if it's a $300,000, you can do the math, that you're going to have a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 payment that you're going to have to make in the bank, and that is a challenge. So there are a couple ways to work around that, one of which I wish I had done or taken advantage of. I was young, y'all are 21, 22. Mm-hmm. I was 26 when I bought the 16-unit building that you guys are in. And at that point in time, I'd been married 2 years, so I had a house, I had a new car payment, my wife had a new car payment, and we were past the point of living in an apartment. You guys are at that stage right now where it's not an issue for you. We were actually trying to have a family, and we had been fed this lie, which at the time was probably true, that housing values never go down, and you buy a house and you just ride the equity. Well, 2008, there was a 30% reset, and in 2025, there's probably going to be a 20% reset. So that's not always the truth. And there was a program then and now, and you're going to have to do your own due diligence on the program, but Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are two quasi kind of hybrid public-private lending entities, government backed. And there is a program where both Fannie and Freddie offer financing with a 5% down payment to people like yourselves that are going in and living in one of the units and renting out the other units. And it's 2 to 4 units. Just knowing that I was going to mention this to you guys, I Googled it and looked up a couple podcasts on YouTube, and it's still a program that's out there. So it's a great program. You get a 30-year fixed rate, interest rate loan, and it's limited to that particular property. In other words, you can't go out and borrow off of it and use it as collateral to buy another asset or another deal, which was my plan. When I was doing bank financing, I would go to a bank, buy something, buy a fourplex. I would fix it up, do my spit shine. I called it lipstick on a pig in the last podcast. Get it looking good, bump the rents, and then I go back to that same bank and say, hey, let's get another appraisal. We'd reappraise it, the value would go up. Greatest day in this business in my life was with the 16 units. I bought it for $260,000. A year later, it basically appraised for double that. So I raised, same 75% borrowing structure. I went and bought 2 more properties. I bought a couple fourplexes for it. So that's not going to be y'all's plan, but look into that program. And I can't even tell you, just Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae, and it's owner occupied 2 to 4 unit rentals. And it's a great program. That's how I would suggest you start.
Well, that's kind of what we're interested in on a smaller scale, like maybe get into a fourplex and try our best to flip it, make it nicer. So like you said, it reappraises for a higher value and we can maybe make some money off of it.
Not looking for a fixer-upper though.
No, maybe it partially already fixed up, just but like the finishing touches on
with
and everything.
Good bones, but put like newer fixtures and things like that on it.
Yeah. And
well, there's a risk. That's a good plan. That's different. That's a little bit of a divergence from the plan that I had. Because I was in real estate for my real job, so I was getting a paycheck and I was getting a small bonus or profit participation supposedly until I had a POS boss that stabbed me in the back. And anyway, it led to me becoming a full-time investor on my own. But when I bought the 16 units, and it was January 15th, 1985, I believe, is when I bought those. So it was a minute ago. I didn't intend to ever sell them. So I wasn't buying them to fix them up and flip them. And I've done that. I've had several kind of parallel plans in my business. Mainly, as we talked about, I had a big overhead. I mean, for me, I had 20 employees, at various times, and I had to feed the machine, and it was not fun, not a good place to be in. But so my advice to you guys is if you're going to be looking to just buy something and fix it up and sell it and take the money to go do something else, that's not a bad plan at all. But there's some advice that I'm going to be given that's really more for if you guys are thinking about holding on to these properties for the long haul, the long run.
We would be, I think, not necessarily getting a fixer-upper or anything like that, and flipping it and reselling it, but sort of getting something that could be a little bit dated, just renovating it like a facelift type thing, and then renting it out after that.
That's a great plan, and it's not a bad plan to fix it up and sell it. The problem is after a certain period of time, and I can't tell you how many transactions will put you at risk for this, but there's something called safe harbor with the IRS, and the IRS at some point in time, if you're buying and flipping, you're going to lose some of the tax advantages. You're going to lose the potential to take a long-term capital gains instead of paying ordinary income tax. If you're buying and flipping, you're defined, and that's what you're basically doing for your business plan, then the IRS will look at you like, well, that's your business. So you then become a merchant developer or a merchant investor. So they're going to charge you at the full ordinary income tax rates as if that's your primary business. It's no different than if you're in the restaurant, you're selling food. You're doing your camera business and so your photography business. So that's just something to think about. But it won't happen immediately. You could probably get by with doing 3 or 4 apartments. It's just flipping them that way. But I remember my tax accountants cautioning me about, hey, you don't want to push this envelope. And I never did. I always wanted to build a portfolio that would be for my retirement, which is where I am now. I'm 50 units plus or minus, and then some rental houses, and but I'm still working in other jobs and have all my career. I've never used the income from the rental property to buy groceries. I've always used it to plow back into the business, and as such, I'm sitting on a really nice portfolio right now. I'm proud of. I've lived in my units. My son's lived in my units. My grandson, maybe if I'm still around, may live in one of my units. So that was my mentality. For y'all, I would look at it initially maybe as if you're going to own it for the long haul. And the long haul might be 5 years, might be 10 years, but not to buy it, fix it up, and sell it in 9 months or 10 months or whatever.
Mm. All right. So for young people like us, it can be really difficult to even start the process of getting approved for a property, especially if it's your first one. Other than building up tens of thousands of dollars for a down payment, other than getting a 700, 800 credit score, what are some steps you can take to ensure that you are approved for the property that you're interested in?
Well, we talked about the Fannie Freddie program, and because I haven't been through that process myself, I don't know how long that takes. So it might be anything I've ever done with the government. If I thought it was going to take X, I ended up getting it done in 5X or 8X or 10X. So there's always that. But another option is to look for seller financing, and that's actually how I bought the 16 units. That particular investor was an older investor that was moving to a different city and had been self-managing and wasn't going to be able to do that. And so I stepped in and said, hey, how about I self-manage this for 60, 90 days, and you can see my work ethic and, if I know what I'm doing or not. And if that's the case and you want to sell it to me and you'd be interested in seller financing it, then, I'm your huckleberry. And at the time, it was a little more challenging to do that even then, because the tax law was different. The seller would have to recognize, even if they didn't get all the money for the sale, if they were financing 80% or 70% or whatever, back in that day, they had to pay taxes as if they sold the whole property. There's now an installment sale recognition by the IRS, which makes this option more readily available for a young investor now to go to a property. And it may take a little bit of research. It may take knocking on doors. It may take talking to tenants. Who's your landlord? Well, it's this property owner, and I'm really worried. I love living here, but the guy's having some health issues, or he wants to move to Canada, or whatever, and find out who he is and knock on his door or reach out to him and say, hey, I'm a young investor. I love your property. I'd love to buy it from you. And, if you're interested in me managing it for a while and getting to, learn about me, and, I'd be interested in maybe a seller financing option. And, it's not going to be easy, and you might have to knock on 100 doors to get one, but all it takes is one. Another option is to find a relative that might help you with the credit, and that could be like they call that a credit enhancement deal. And there are some limitations, but there are some 100% financing options if you come in with a seasoned investor that has some type of collateral that they can put up, and they get a line of credit that functions as the equity. So in other words, it's 100% debt, but you have an investor that says, hey, I'm going to put up, I got a lake cabin, I don't have a mortgage on it, put that up as a line of credit and let Cam and Jess draw down on that line of credit for the down payment and maybe, a little bit of seed money for whatever repairs they want to make early on. Mm-hmm. And then you have to either make some kind of a deal with them to pay them some incentive to do that, or maybe they get a carried interest in the deal. My attitude early on was, 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. So if you got to give away 50% of the equity for the first deal or three, so what?
Yeah, talking about how things take a long time, like these processes take a long time generally. When you bought the 16 unit, how long did it take until that was profitable for you?
The greatest day in my career was like 18 months later. It didn't take long at all. Wow. It took a lot of hard work, and I was still working a full-time job. So every day I'd get off work. If it was the summertime and daylight, it lasted from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. I was there till 8:30. Until you couldn't literally see anymore, and working, sanding my own floors and doing my own painting and landscaping, and I loved it. And that may or may not be for you or for everybody, but
I think it would be. We really love landscaping, and we really
getting our hands dirty.
Yeah.
I used to build models. When I was a kid, I'm talking about like 6 years old. I was not any good, but I'd have glue everywhere. But I'd buy the battleships and the airplanes. This is that. This is no different. And so I was cut out for it.
We renovated our whole van, so we're roof.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
doing a project.
Well, you're pretty
and
handy.
finishing it.
I've already watched you like reaffixing your solar panels. So, you know,
Yeah,
and,
I'm a
and there's
little bit
YouTube
handy.
now for you guys. I didn't have
Oh, yeah.
YouTube. How do you fix this? Oh man, just go to YouTube. Oh, it's nothing to it. You know, I was paying $85 just for somebody to come change a toilet seat. You know, it's and I wasn't. But anyway, so I think just be prepared that things are going to take a little longer. But my gosh, I mean, you guys got back from your adventure on the Appalachian Trail in, when was it, September, October?
Yeah, I think we got back here in
Like October last year. Yeah.
And we've blinked our eyes and we're in the spring of 2025. So time
Yeah.
goes by fast, and as busy as y'all are with your other businesses, you just have to move it along a little bit every day, and it's not going to be a full-time job for you until you actually get to a closing table. So I identified the 16 units. I reached out to the owner. It took a while for them to respond, and when they did respond, we were in a negotiated process for 60 or 90 days. I wrote a contract we agreed to price, we agreed to financing structure. My contract called for a 30-day inspection period, and then I had about 15 days to close. I closed on January 15th, 1985, as I mentioned, and sometime in 1986 or early in 1987, I refinanced it and I bought 3 fourplexes, so I was rolling.
Yeah.
Then I had to have an employee, and then I had to have another employee, and it just grew into, at the height, I was like just under 200 units, or no, actually it was just under, it was 280 units actually at the height, so.
Well, I think we have a really unique opportunity here. We have a few of your units that are open right now, I think, that we have a chance to look at, and maybe you can show us a few things to look out for as we are searching.
There's a great, don't do this to me, but there's a great movie you need to watch. I tell
What's
any
that?
young investor, and it was Michael Keaton and Melanie Griffin, and I forget who else was in it. It was another big actor. And it was called Pacific Heights, and it's about this guy that moves in to a fourplex or a duplex or something or other, and he wants to buy it for cheap. So he's like cultivating rats and roaches and stuff in the unit next door so that he can bring the value. It's a great move. Don't do that to me.
Wow.
But
don't
there are
give me
no
names.
vacant units that you've got to choose from. So this is the only one, and it's actually leased to the niece
Gotcha.
of our friend that came down and did the comedy show with us. So I would absolutely.
You designed kind of this floor plan yourself, the way, like the layout. So why did you decide to go with this layout? What makes it so good?
Well, I realized again early on that my differential advantage was to sell lifestyle and not an apartment. It was just the apartment needed to mirror the lifestyle that I was offering. So I'm in a great neighborhood. We could walk to 7 or 8, 10 restaurants right here. I felt like at a very early point in my career that I could offer a place for a seasoned professional that just wanted to have a quiet place to come home from work. These are people that worked as hard as I did. They make more money than I do. They come home at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and they just they're not trying to meet their neighbors. They're not trying to go to the clubhouse or to socialize or whatever. They just want a quiet place. And then come Friday night, they're packing up and they're heading off to the lake or the beach or somewhere fun, and they're not thinking about the apartments. They don't want to have to worry about maintenance, and they come home on a Sunday night and they're about to get into a work week. So for me, that was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. The second bedroom allows, if it's a divorcee and they got kids or whatever, I have some of that. It allows company, and it also creates a great office space for somebody that works from home. We're getting a lot more of that even, since 2020. I mean, I've not really slowed down. Some people have gone back to in office, but I've got a lot of people that are running, doing their work from home. And this is a great floor plan. We spread out the bedrooms. We set a bedroom on either side. I didn't actually design it. I just was involved with a lot of 2-bedroom, different 1-bath floor plans or even 3-bedroom floor plans. And I went to an architect and I asked the architect to decide it or to design it for me and to create a separation between the 2-bedroom spaces so that there's a bedroom on each side of the apartment, a bathroom on each side of the apartment, and the common space, living, dining, kitchen, laundry, separates the two. So if somebody sneezes in the bedroom next door, you don't have to tell them Gesundheit at 1 a.m. if they're a roommate scenario.
Yeah.
It's a great floor plan.
Cool. Well, let's check it out.
All right.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this 2-bedroom that supposedly is like the best
It's the Taj
kind
Mahal.
of, yeah, the best layout that you could get.
So for my avatar, this is a seasoned professional, not a young professional, that does work from home a lot of times or wants to have a separate suite for company or kids or whatever. So we decided to separate the living space by the common space. So let's walk into the guest suite initially.
All right. Okay, so we got a bathroom off to the side that could be guest bathroom if this is an office space.
It is, and we put a little bigger soaker tub in that guest bathroom just in case it was a roommate scenario and they were sharing the rent to where this person wouldn't feel like they were cheated.
Awesome. It's a pretty good size too.
This bedroom is a half a foot narrower than the master, but it's still a big for a standard apartment bedroom. It's a good size.
Yeah.
I cheated a little bit on the closet space.
Let's see. I mean, that's not bad. It's bigger than a lot of closets that I've
I double
had.
racked it, so that helps.
Yeah, lots of light in here. That's good. It's towards the end of the day, and
I built
it's still
this
bright.
apartment 20 years ago, so it's been a great floor plan for us.
All right. All right, let's go see this living room and kitchen area.
I love an open floor plan. We have a 9-foot ceiling, which, that's pretty much standard these days, but before 1990, an 8-foot ceiling I've even owned some apartments with a 7.5-foot ceiling. But so taking advantage of that, I wanted an open floor plan and create like separation of the kitchen from the great space with a counter bar that people typically put 2 or 3 stools here.
I like this a lot better than there being a wall.
Yes, which is unfortunately in the apartment you're in now, you can't really communicate with Cam if he's watching TV in the living dining area. So here you can.
Well, I think that's just because of the dating
Yes.
of that apartment. Open floor plan wasn't a huge thing decades ago.
To the contrary, people liked the containerization of the space so they could be off by themselves. But and then I always try to create some type of porch or screened in patio or whatever.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And this isn't an urban, suburban kind of location. There's about 18,000 cars a day that come by. But we did a tree survey before I built this property and designed the floor plan of the building around keeping as many trees as we could. So even though you're in an urban kind of environment, you feel like you're in a tree house.
Yeah, if I lived here in this unit, I would be out here all the time. I would probably put my bed out here.
Not in August. Welcome to the master suite. Again, bedroom is like a half a foot wider.
Yeah.
And there's not a closet in the bedroom proper. We put it in the bathroom.
Okay. I like having closets in the bathroom because you can, change in here and not have to get a little more privacy that way. Yeah, this has plenty of room.
Then just a standard 5-foot tub. This is our basic finish. We've got some kitchens where we've done granite. We've also done simulated granite. Honestly, the Formica, it rents just as well as the others. So to spend that extra $3,000 for Corian or Formica countertop,
$3,000.
I mean, granite countertop doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Oh, there's a dishwasher.
There is a dishwasher. The only thing that you don't see is a garbage disposal, and that's after 20 years of, at the point I built this, I'd been in the business 20 years. And after pulling pennies and quarters and out of the garbage disposal, I decided tenants just don't really know how to run a garbage disposal.
I love that there's a laundry hookup too. That's
Every one of my 2 bedrooms has a washer dryer space and or washer dryer provided in about half of my 1 bedrooms. If I had my way, I'm slowly but surely converting my 1 bedrooms in the older buildings to have an in office or an in apartment laundry room.
All right, well, you want to go look at the other units?
Let's go look at a duplex and a 4-plex.
Sounds good.
When I bought this property, I was initially planning to tear it down. And I just felt like it had some great bones, great curb appeal, good floor plans, so decided to keep it, put a 4-plex next door to it. So here's a 4-unit property. Doesn't have quite the same curb appeal, but from an economic standpoint, I think this is your target property right here, a 4-unit property, all 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. So Jazz, Cam, you guys want to buy an investment property, a rental property. I've showed you a couple things, including a duplex and a fourplex. My suggestion would be focus on the fourplex, but you can't have that one.